If Machiavelli walked into your sales floor today, he wouldn't be the loudest rep. He wouldn't be pitching hardest or closing fastest. He'd be the one everyone underestimates until they check the leaderboard and realize he's been number one for 6 months straight. Drawing from the neuro-emotional persuasion framework and Machiavelli's timeless principles of invisible influence, I'm going to show you how the most effective salespeople operate. Like strategic advisors, not desperate pitch machines. In sales, just like in power, the person who appears to need it least often gets it more. Machiavelli understood something most sales training misses. Revealing your full capability too early puts you at a disadvantage. Jeremy Miner echoes this in modern context. We're not selling the thing. We're selling the results of what that thing does. Here's where most reps sabotage themselves. A prospect asks, "Why should I go with you?" And they immediately launch into their credentials, their company's awards, their best-in-class service. This builds on what Machiavelli would call the illusion of strength through proclamation, but it actually triggers what Miner identifies as fight or flight mode in your prospect's brain. Instead, try this approach. Prospect says, "Tell me why I should work with you." You respond, "You know, I'm not entirely sure you should yet. We'd need to understand what you currently have in place and where the gaps might be. Maybe you don't even need what we offer. But just so I understand, who are you with now?" For coverage, notice what just happened. You didn't prove you're the best. You suggested you might not be right for them. Machiavelli would recognize this as strategic withdrawal, what he called appearing weaker than you are so others expose themselves. Miner calls it neutralizing sales resistance. Same principle, separated by 500 years. Practical application for this week. When a prospect challenges you about your solution, respond with curiosity instead of credentials. Ask 3 questions before you answer 1. Let them talk themselves into the problem before you mention your solution exists. This synthesis draws from Jeremy Miner's NEPQ methodology and Machiavelli's principle of controlled underestimation. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. In sales terms, prospects make decisions based on what they feel is true, not what you tell them is true. This connects directly to Miner's core insight. Human beings don't make decisions through logic. They make them through emotion, specifically through the pain of staying where they are versus the relief of change. But here's where most salespeople fail. They try to create that pain through external pressure, closing techniques, urgency tactics. Machiavelli would never do that. He'd ask questions that make prospects discover their own pain, then stay silent while they sit with it. Watch this framework in action. You say, "So Dan, walk me through this. Let's say you pass away unexpectedly next week. Who handles paying the mortgage, the funeral costs, getting the kids through school?" Dan responds, "Well, I guess my wife would have to figure it out." You pause for 3 seconds, lean in slightly, and ask, "And you're comfortable with that? With her handling all of that alone?" That silence is doing the work. Machiavelli knew that the most persuasive speech is the one that allows others to persuade themselves. Miner teaches this as building the gap between where they are and where they need to be. Don't fill the silence. Let them feel the weight of their own answer. Practical application. This week, after asking an emotional question, force yourself to stay quiet for 5 seconds. Count internally. Watch how prospects start solving for their own objections. This combines Machiavelli's principle of self-persuasion with Jeremy Miner's gap methodology from behavioral psychology. Here's where Machiavelli and modern sales neuroscience become identical. Machiavelli taught that you should blur the line between threat and ally. Never let people categorize you completely. Miner discovered, through studying thousands of sales calls, that prospects have their defenses up highest when they're certain you're trying to sell them something So what do both masters recommend? Introduce strategic ambiguity about your own intentions. Most reps walk into calls projecting certainty. I know we can help you. We definitely have the solution. You're going to love this. Every word triggers resistance because the prospect's brain is screaming, "This person needs my money." Machiavellian's sales approach looks like this. Prospect asks, "So what's your best price?" You respond, "You know, I'm not sure pricing even matters yet. We might not be able to help you at all, depending on what your situation looks like. Can I ask, what made you start looking into this now?" You've just done something psychologically sophisticated. You've made them uncertain about whether you even want their business. Machiavelli called this making them chase what withdraws. Miner calls it pattern interruption. The prospect expected you to jump at closing them. Instead, you suggested you might walk away. Now who's selling who? Practical application: replace assumptive language this week. Instead of, "When we get started," say, "If this even makes sense." Instead of "You're going to love," say, "You might find." Track how prospects respond differently when you sound less certain. This principle synthesizes Machiavelli's strategic ambiguity with Jeremy Miner's sales resistance elimination techniques. Let's see how these three principles compound. You enter as the problem finder, not solution pusher, taking the underestimated position. You use questions and silence to build emotional gaps, enabling self-persuasion. You eliminate resistance by removing certainty about your intentions, creating strategic ambiguity. The result? Prospects who open up, discover problems they didn't know they had, and view you as the only person who actually understands their situation. You're not the pushy salesperson, you're the trusted advisor they're trying to qualify for. Machiavelli wouldn't dominate through force, he'd dominate through positioning. Miner proved that sales isn't about and overcoming objections, it's about preventing them through how you show up from the first sentence. Both understood the same truth. The person who appears to need the outcome least controls the outcome most. This week, try one thing: stop proving you're the best option, start questioning whether you're even the right option. Watch how that single shift changes everything. These insights stand on the shoulders of Jeremy Miner's groundbreaking work in neuro-emotional persuasion and the timeless strategic principles Machiavelli outlined centuries ago. Different eras, same human psychology. If you want to go deeper into these frameworks, explore NEPEQ training and revisit the Prince with fresh eyes. The silent closer always out-earns the loud one, not because they're less confident, but because they understand what both Machiavelli and modern neuroscience confirm. True influence whispers while others shout.